What if I told you that Persia never truly vanished from history? It simply changed its name. Why would a nation with over 3,000 years of recorded civilization decide in the middle of the 20th century to reintroduce itself to the world under a different identity? Was it politics, pride, reinvention, or something far deeper? Today we begin a journey across deserts and mountains, through empires and invasions, through faith and power. This is not just the story of a name change, it is the story of how identity evolves, and how civilizations survive by transforming themselves. Before we explore modern decisions, we must travel back to where it all began, the vast Iranian plateau. Surrounded by the Zagros Mountains to the west and great deserts like the Dasht-e-Kavir in the center, this land was more than a geographical crossroads. It was a meeting point of ideas, trade, language, and power. Caravans crossed it carrying silk, spices, metals, but also beliefs, technologies, and ambitions. Around the second millennium BCE, Indo-Iranian tribes began arriving in this region. They were nomadic, spoke early Indo-European languages, and shared linguistic roots with civilizations that would later speak Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit. Their language was not Arabic. Despite modern misconceptions, in Old Persian, Madar meant mother and Peder meant father. Echoes of linguistic cousins heard across Europe and Asia. Among these migrating groups, two would shape history: the Medes and the Persians. The Medes settled in the northwest and became the first dominant political power of the region. Organized and militarily capable, they established a kingdom that commanded respect across the Near East. The Persians, meanwhile, settled farther south in a region known as Pars, later called Fars. At first, they were not the strongest tribe. Their name referred only to a specific territory, not to an entire civilization. But history often favors the underestimated. In the 6th century BCE, a leader emerged from among the Persians who would permanently reshape the political map of the ancient world: Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was more than a conqueror. He was a strategist of identity. After defeating the Medes, he did something remarkable. Instead of destroying their culture, he absorbed it. Instead of ruling through terror, he ruled through calculated respect. Thus was born the Achaemenid Empire, often considered the first true world empire. Unlike many ancient rulers, Cyrus allowed conquered peoples to maintain their religions and customs. When he captured Babylon, he did not desecrate its temples. Instead, he restored them. For the Jewish population exiled there, he permitted a return to Jerusalem, earning him a place in biblical history as a liberator. This was not weakness, it was political brilliance. Rather than forcing uniformity, the Achaemenid system thrived on diversity under centralized authority. Provinces called satrapies were governed locally but answered to imperial oversight. Roads connected vast territories from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea. Royal couriers could cross thousands of kilometers with astonishing speed for the time. Under rulers like Darius I, the empire expanded into Egypt, Central Asia, and Anatolia. Administrative reforms standardized taxation, infrastructure flourished, and monumental architecture rose in cities like Persepolis. The empire did not merely conquer territory. It managed complexity. Historians often describe it as the world's first superpower. And for over 2 centuries, it stood as the dominant force between East and West. But empires, no matter how sophisticated, are fragile balancing acts. Cultural tolerance and centralized power require constant maintenance, and sometimes from beyond the horizon, a challenger appears. In 334 BCE, a young Macedonian king crossed the Hellespont with a disciplined army. His name was Alexander the Great. In battles at Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela, the Persian armies were defeated. The Achaemenid Empire collapsed with astonishing speed. Yet what happened next was unexpected. Alexander did not erase Persia, he adopted elements of it. He wore Persian garments, married into Persian nobility, and maintained aspects of the imperial bureaucracy. He sought fusion, not annihilation. But his sudden death in 323 BCE shattered his dream of unity. His generals divided the empire, and the Persian heartland fell under Seleucid control. Still, something important endured. Persia was no longer the ruling empire of the world. But it was not gone. Its administrative systems, cultural memory, and identity remained embedded in the region. The name Persia would echo across centuries. But within the land itself, another name persisted quietly: Iran, derived from Aryanam, meaning the land of the Aryans. For now, that name slept beneath history. When Alexander's empire fractured after his death, the lands of ancient Persia did not regain independence immediately. Instead, they became part of a Hellenistic world ruled by his successors. The Seleucid dynasty controlled much of the former Achaemenid territory, spreading Greek language, art, and political culture across the region. But beneath the surface, Persian traditions endured. Greek became the language of administration in many cities, and new urban centers were founded. Yet in rural areas and local courts, Iranian customs, stories, and spiritual practices survived. Empires may fall quickly, civilizations rarely do. Over time, Seleucid control weakened. From the northeast, a new Iranian power began to rise: the Parthians. The Parthian Empire, 247 BCE to 224 CE, restored political control to Iranian hands. Though less centralized than the Achaemenids, the Parthians were formidable warriors, especially known for their mounted archers and the famous Parthian shot, a tactic where cavalry would fire arrows backward while retreating. They stood as a buffer between East and West, often clashing with the Roman Empire. Yet internally, their rule was a blend of Iranian and Hellenistic influences. Greek artistic styles mixed with Persian court traditions. Identity was not erased. It evolved. Then, in the 3rd century CE, a new dynasty emerged from the very homeland of the ancient Persians: Fars. They claimed to be heirs of the old Achaemenid kings. This was the rise of the Sasanian Empire. The Sasanians were ambitious. They centralized authority, strengthened the monarchy, and revived many symbols of pre-Hellenistic Persian glory. More importantly, they elevated Zoroastrianism into a formal state religion. Zoroastrianism, centered on the worship of Ahura Mazda and the cosmic struggle between truth and falsehood, became deeply intertwined with political power. Fire temples were restored, religious texts were compiled, and a structured priesthood gained influence. Under rulers like Shapur I and Khosrow I, the Sasanian Empire rivaled Rome and later Byzantium. It was a period of intellectual and cultural flowering. Advances in medicine, philosophy, astronomy, and art flourished in cities such as Ctesiphon. But history was once again preparing a dramatic shift. In the 7th century, a new force emerged from the Arabian Peninsula: Islam. United under a powerful religious and political movement, Arab armies rapidly expanded beyond Arabia. Within decades, they confronted the Sasanian Empire, which had been weakened by long wars against Byzantium. The decisive battles came swiftly. By 651 CE, the last Sasanian ruler was defeated. The empire collapsed. Islam did not arrive quietly. It came as both a faith and a governing system. Gradually, the region became part of the expanding Islamic Caliphate. Arabic became the language of administration and religion. Zoroastrian institutions declined. Over time, most of the population converted to Islam. Yet here lies one of the most remarkable aspects of Iranian history. Persia did not dissolve into Arab identity. Instead, it absorbed Islam and reshaped it. The Persian language, though heavily influenced by Arabic vocabulary, survived and evolved into New Persian. Persian scholars became central figures in the Islamic Golden Age. Philosophers, scientists, poets, and physicians writing in Persian and Arabic shaped global knowledge. Avicenna revolutionized medicine and philosophy. Ferdowsi composed the Shahnameh, an epic poem that preserved pre-Islamic Iranian legends and kings, ensuring that ancient identity would never be forgotten. The Shahnameh was more than literature. It was cultural resistance through storytelling. Even under Arab rule and later under Turkic and Mongol dynasties, the Persian cultural core endured. The Buyids, Seljuks, and later Mongol Ilkhanate all ruled over Iran at various points. Conquerors came and went. Yet they often adopted Persian administrative systems and court culture. It became almost inevitable. To rule Iran effectively, one had to become partially Persian. Then came a transformative turning point in the 16th century. a new dynasty emerged that would redefine the religious identity of the region permanently. The Safavids. Before them, most Muslims in Iran were Sunni, like the majority of the Islamic world. But the Safavid dynasty made a bold and controversial decision. They declared Twelver Shia Islam the official state religion. This was not a gradual shift. It was enforced with determination, sometimes violently. Religious institutions were reorganized, scholars were invited from Shia centers abroad, and the population was encouraged, or compelled, to convert. Why does this matter? Because it permanently distinguished Iran from its powerful Sunni neighbors, especially the Ottoman Empire. Religion became not just a spiritual framework, but a marker of political sovereignty and national identity. Under Safavid rule, Persian art, architecture, and philosophy flourished once more. Cities like Isfahan became symbols of imperial elegance. A new synthesis emerged. Persian heritage fused with Shia Islam. And with that synthesis, an ancient name began to re-emerge more confidently within the land itself. Iran. Not just a poetic term, not just an internal reference. A civilizational identity that had survived conquest, adaptation, and transformation. By the 19th century, the once mighty empires of Iran had long faded into history. The country was now ruled by the Qajar dynasty, a monarchy struggling to maintain control in a rapidly changing world. While Europe industrialized and expanded its colonial reach, Iran found itself caught between two imperial giants, the Russian Empire to the north and the British Empire to the south. Both powers sought influence over Iranian territory, trade routes, and resources. Through treaties, concessions, and economic pressure, foreign powers gained significant leverage over the country. Railways, oil fields, and trade agreements were often shaped more by London and St. Petersburg than by Tehran. To many Iranians, this felt humiliating. The word Persia, commonly used in Western diplomacy, carried with it exotic imagery, carpets, poetry, palaces, and ancient kings. But it also carried something else, a tone of Orientalism. In European narratives, Persia was romanticized, but also portrayed as decadent, backward, and incapable of modern governance. Internally, however, many educated elites were rediscovering their deeper historical roots. The term Iran had always existed within the language and literature of the people. Derived from Aryanam, meaning land of the Aryans or land of the nobles, it was an ancient self-designation dating back to pre-Islamic times. For centuries, there had been a dual identity. Persia, the name used by outsiders. Iran, the name used by its own people. But that duality would not last forever. In 1925, a military officer named Reza Shah rose to power and founded the Pahlavi dynasty. Determined to modernize and centralize the country, he launched ambitious reforms aimed at transforming Iran into a strong, independent nation-state. Reza Shah believed Iran needed to break free from foreign dominance, not only politically, but symbolically. He built railways, restructured the army, secularized aspects of governance, and limited clerical power. Western-style education expanded. Traditional dress codes were challenged. The state grew stronger and more centralized. But modernization is not only about infrastructure, it is also about image. On March 21, 1935, the Persian New Year, Reza Shah sent a diplomatic circular to foreign governments requesting that they refer to his country by its indigenous name, Iran. From that point forward, in international documents and treaties, Persia would officially become Iran. Why make such a change? It was not random, it was strategic. Reza Shah wanted to emphasize national unity over regional identity. Persia originally referred to one province, Fars, but Iran represented the broader civilization, encompassing all ethnic groups within the country. There was also a political message embedded in the name. During the early 20th century, ideas of nationalism were reshaping the globe. Countries were redefining themselves based on language, ethnicity, and historical continuity. Reza Shah sought to position Iran as an ancient, sovereign civilization, not merely a romanticized Eastern monarchy. However, the decision was not universally welcomed. Some intellectuals argued that Persia carried global recognition and prestige. After all, when Western audiences thought of Cyrus, Darius, and Persepolis, they thought of Persia. Would abandoning that name weaken cultural influence? Even abroad, confusion followed. Many in Europe and America continued using Persia for years out of habit. Eventually, in 1959, under Mohammad Reza Shah, the government clarified that both names could be used interchangeably, but officially the state remained Iran. Yet history had another dramatic turn ahead. In 1979, widespread unrest against monarchy, inequality, and Western influence erupted into revolution. The Pahlavi dynasty collapsed. In its place rose a new political system, the Islamic Republic of Iran, led by Ruhollah Khomeini. The revolution radically reshaped the country's global image. Where Reza Shah had emphasized secular nationalism and modernization, the new regime emphasized Shia Islamic governance and resistance to Western influence. Relations with the United States deteriorated dramatically after the hostage crisis at the American embassy in Tehran. Sanctions followed. Political tensions intensified. Over the following decades, Iran would be associated in global media with nuclear disputes, regional conflicts, and ideological confrontation. And something curious happened in public perception. The word Iran became associated with modern geopolitics. Conflict, sanctions, political tension. Meanwhile, Persia began to evoke nostalgia. Ancient glory, poetry, art, and timeless civilization. Two names, one country, two global images. But the deeper question remains, can a name truly reshape destiny, or does it simply reveal the struggle between past and present? Today, when someone says Iran, many immediately think of geopolitics, nuclear negotiations, regional tensions, sanctions, and ideological confrontation. The modern state dominates headlines. But when someone says Persia, something entirely different often comes to mind. Ancient kings, golden palaces, poetry, philosophy, art, and mystery. How did one land come to carry two such contrasting images? The answer lies not in contradiction, but in continuity. Because Persia never truly disappeared, and Iran was never truly new. They are not two separate histories. They are two chapters of the same unfolding story. To understand this, we must look beyond politics and into culture. The one force that has outlived every dynasty, invasion, and revolution in this land. Walk through the ruins of Persepolis, and you will see the stone carvings of delegates from dozens of nations bringing gifts to the Achaemenid king. It is a reminder that ancient Persia was not isolated. It was connected, global, and administratively sophisticated. Visit Isfahan, shaped during the Safavid era, and you see the fusion of Islamic devotion and Persian aesthetics and architecture that feels almost mathematical in its beauty. Open a volume of classical Persian poetry, and the language still flows with metaphors that link heaven and earth, love and destiny, kings and commoners. Even after the 1979 revolution, even under sanctions and political isolation, this cultural heartbeat never stopped. The modern state may be called the Islamic Republic of Iran, but its cultural DNA stretches back thousands of years before the concept of a republic even existed. The poetry of Rumi is quoted worldwide. The verses of Hafez remain central to Iranian identity. The Epic of Ferdowsi preserved pre-Islamic memory when political power had already shifted. These figures are not relics. They are living bridges between Persia and Iran. And this is the paradox. While the world debates Iran as a political actor, millions across the globe celebrate Persian culture without always realizing they are speaking about the same civilization. Even inside the country, identity is layered. There are Persians, Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, Baluchis, a mosaic of ethnicities united under one national framework. The name Iran reflects this broader unity beyond the province of Fars from which Persia originally derived. In that sense, the 1935 decision by Reza Shah was not about erasing history. It was about redefining it for a modern era. But history is rarely so simple, because names carry emotion. For many in the diaspora, Persian feels cultural, artistic, timeless. Iranian feels political, contemporary, sometimes burdened by headlines. The difference is not linguistic. It is psychological. Yet both are authentic. Persia represents the ancient imperial legacy. The Achaemenids, the Sasanians, the poetry, the gardens, the Silk Roads. Iran represents the evolving nation, constitutional movements, revolutions, reformists, conservatives, scientists, filmmakers, and ordinary citizens navigating the 21st century. And perhaps the greatest testament to this civilization's resilience is this: it has never stopped reinventing itself. From Zoroastrian fire temples to Islamic seminaries, from cuneiform inscriptions to digital activism, from Cyrus's cylinder to modern constitutions, few civilizations have endured such repeated transformation while retaining such a distinct cultural core. Look at the Cyrus cylinder, often described as one of the earliest charters of human rights. Look at Naqsh-i-Rostam, where kings carved their victories into stone. Now look at modern Tehran, skyscrapers rising beneath mountains that have watched over empires. Different eras, same land. So did Persia disappear? No. It evolved into Iran, and Iran still carries Persia within it. A civilization is not defined by a single ruler, religion, or regime. It is defined by memory, by language, by art, by the stories people tell about themselves across generations. And in that sense, Persia never died. It simply adapted. Perhaps the real question is not why the name changed, but whether the world is ready to see beyond the name at all. Because sometimes history is not about what is lost. It is about what survives. And few civilizations have survived and transformed, quite like this one. Thank you for being part of this journey through time. If you enjoyed exploring the layered history behind Persia and Iran, stay tuned for more deep dives into the civilizations that shaped our world.